one of the production value things that I saw that they didn't put production value in, but I absolutely loved, and I don't know how they would have done it differently, but every time they were falling, it was just a bunch of dummies. They were just a bunch of mannequins that they put clothes on and just threw down a hole.
That's
Got me
hilarious. How did I
laughing
miss that?
every single time. Yeah,
They should do that
because
in
they're just very
cinema. Like that
stiff.
should be a gimmick that you can deploy today and it would still be funny. So I think that's a little
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
harmless. Yeah.
absolutely.
Gen Wars. Welcome back to Gen Wars, the combative yet sometimes agreeable podcast between the Gen Xers and the millennials. Today, we're going to be going over the 1981 classic Time Bandits. We know Steven doesn't think so, but it's a classic, or deemed a classic, directed by Terry Gilliam. First, we need to say hi to our resident millennial, Steven. How you doing today, Steven?
Oh, I'm big chilling. I speaking of Time Bandits, I'll never get the time back on watching this film. So I'm hope we can like gain some of that back. When you like and subscribe and go to the Funky Store, Funky Dot Store, you can pick up some merch over there. I'm in a big bad mood, so I had to wear my big mood shirt. So you can get one too at the Funky Store.
Fantastic. This is going to get interesting then. And as you see, we have some new friends joining us today. Joining Steven on the millennial side, we have our good friend Katherine. She's just started up a new YouTube channel, Spectacle Views. How you doing today, Katherine?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for letting me join. For my channel, it is a theme park and eventual travel channel, like vlogging. My fiance and I are currently focusing on Disney theme parks, since that's really what we enjoy doing. And we do have annual passes, so we get to go as often as we can. And go ahead and check out our first vlog on our channel. We hope to be adding to that very soon.
Excellent. Yeah, I got stuck watching it instead of doing the work that I was supposed to be doing. So she's doing good stuff over there, and only more to come. So in joining me on the millennial, or rewind, joining me on the Gen X train, we have my longtime friend and our good friend Cam. Cam also is starting a YouTube channel at the onset or the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. How are we doing today, Cam? And give them a brief rundown of what they're going to be seeing on this wonderful channel.
Doing great on a Monday, unlike Steven. We'll see how that turns out in this review here. Yeah, I've started a YouTube streaming on Twitch also for Black Ops 6. Particularly into the zombies section. I'm trying to bust through Easter eggs, grind out all the XP that we can, and have a good time while we do it. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Excited to have both of you here. This is we're expanding this universe a little bit to have encompass a few different opinions and viewpoints here. So this should be fun. And we didn't say to go over. Make sure to go over to Funky Games and watch all of the gameplay on Steven's channel. We just finally wrapped up our gameplay of Blasphemous, which was interesting, and you can come watch me fail upwards. That does not mean I will rising strike, though.
I saw some failing downwards too. There was some falling in pits.
There was a lot of falling in pits. If Steven had his way, that was because I didn't rising strike. So.
Should have listened.
I should have listened. All right, so if you haven't been here before, we've developed a system to rate these movies and keep us on some sort of rails, criteria to keep us on rails. And we've broken these down into 5 categories. Those categories are nostalgia, production value, spirit, rewatchability, and our overall thoughts. So I'm tired of talking. Steven, take it away.
All right, so we're gonna lean with nostalgia.
Yes.
As a filthy no good millennial, I have no nostalgia for this. I didn't hear about this till it was brought up for the show. Things that I have learned is that it's being remade or re-envisioned into an Apple subscription show. Okay.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
going to be an Apple TV show, I believe written and directed by the great Taika Waititi. So that's pretty awesome.
All right.
It is currently on right now, is it not?
So there
What,
there
Nick?
is
As
an
the time
amount of
as the
stuff
time
to-
recording this, it's currently on.
Oh, it's,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
Okay.
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have some reference material then.
All right.
There you go.
So
All
as
right.
far as this
So
goes, I will say that the period, like, looked good, looked reasonable. It was the period. I think they were doing like it wasn't any kind of time difference than when the production of the film was. So it looked really good. And aesthetics resonated a bit of nostalgia for me. I don't know if we want to go right into our score or do we want to break it down a little
no,
bit or
I said let's hold off on the score and we'll drop the scores at the end.
okay, perfect.
All right, Cam, what say you for your nostalgia of this movie?
Plastic covers on sofas and stuff. My family didn't do that. I don't think we had anything worthy of covering, but I did know people who had stuff like that. So that was kind of funny to see. It definitely did capture the time period, which was present day UK at that point. So, I don't know. There's not much more to say than, maybe the game shows too, and the way that they were kind of very disengaged from the kid. Maybe that was my childhood.
All right, Catherine, how's your nostalgia for this movie? I know you might fall into the similar category as Steven. I know you probably have heard of this movie because you do watch movies, unlike Senor
unlike
Steven.
Steven. I've heard of this movie a while. I don't know, a few years ago. I've been watching The Goldbergs, and that was like heavily referenced in that show. He was always wearing, the main character was always wearing a Time Bandits T-shirt, or there was a Time Bandits poster on his like bedroom walls, and he was like a big movie nerd like I am. So I was like, I really feel like I need to check out this film.
Adam had all the gear.
He did have all the gear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I have a very different opinion of this film than Adam Goldberg does. So
All right.
overall, I did. Oh, should I just jump into like?
No,
nostalgia
keep
just
going.
like-
No, keep going. I gotta lay out mine.
I mean, I didn't like Steven and I being the dirty millennials that we are. I did not grow up with this film, but I did grow up watching a lot of other fantasy '80s films, so I could kind of see where this one was like. This one walked so all the other '80s fantasy films could run essentially. So I see I have a little bit of nostalgia with that.
that face, Steven, is selling it right now. My nostalgia for this is definitely same with Cameron. I knew a few people who had some plastic on their furniture. Did not have that in my house. Two rambunctious boys running around destroying everything. So maybe my mom should have put plastic on the furniture to salvage that. But this is one of those movies that was on. Well, I guess I didn't see it in '81. So whenever it hit HBO, it was on repeat and catched it every time it was on TV. So I did watch this movie a lot as a kid, as Steven and I talked about in the Transformers Rise of the Beast podcast. I had a black box, so I had HBO, and so I got to see this movie
And then
quite
some.
frequently, and then, and then some, exactly. So yeah,
You know,
I have a
time of safety to admit that. Do you think the feds are still gonna like what?
yeah, it's a long
Good
time
luck.
ago. It's fine. Yeah, I didn't buy it. It wasn't. We've moved a few times since then.
They'll never track you
but-
down.
Exactly. So yeah, I have a fondness for this movie, and as we will see when we get into the later parts of this movie, I started remembering as we got. I was like, oh, it's gonna do this thing. Oh yeah, like it just had been so long since I had seen this movie that all those pieces started coming back to me. So I'm putting my nostalgia number at a 9 for this, because this was one of those movies as a child that I watched quite frequently, and Steven doesn't like that number. I
know.
see it in his
Steven
face.
has quite a reaction to that.
Visceral.
So yeah, I'm sticking my nostalgia at a 9. Steven, where does your nostalgia number stand on this one? Big
2.
fat goose egg, I'm assuming.
No, I'm
2.
giving it 2.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, 2.
I was
2.
assuming a 0.
I
All right.
give it a 0 because it is a time period that I do enjoy, and
Okay.
I do have a nostalgia for like a lot of practical effects and like a lot of like the quirks in the cinematography of that age. It hits different. It's still enjoyable to watch. Like if it was, I would just like caught myself looking at it and there was no sound and I was like walking past like a CRT with it on. I'd be like, that's a movie I'd watch. Little would I know that that was not the case. So I do have to give it at least a couple marks within nostalgia. It did hit some initial, but like the first 10 minutes, really I was just like, oh yes, I am in. I am ready. I like this. This is very Jim Henson. This is like Steven Spielberg peak, like and Monty Python. Like it's got all the ingredients. They just threw it at the wall instead of in the bowl. So
In the bowl.
in the bowl.
All right. Cameron, what's your score for this classic?
I went with 7 on this one, and yeah, it was on HBO, but it was not something that I sat through. I feel like I've seen parts of this movie a bunch of times over the course of 30 years or so. So yeah, it didn't hit as hard. It like there were some production quirks and there was some nostalgic aspects of it, but I also didn't grow up in the UK, but I can appreciate the period. So
Yeah. I will say the same thing where I didn't watch it all the way through every time it was on. I caught it. So I have watched it once through and then caught it 100 times in like chunks. So I know the movie pretty much from back to front, especially kind of reliving that when I got back to it now and went, oh yeah, I remember all of this. This is all, very ingrained back here somewhere. So Katherine, what's your? So Cam gave it a 7. Katherine, what's your value for this?
I'm sitting near the bottom with Steven with a big old 3.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up on this film. I've grown up with plenty of other 80s fantasy films, and this one just like, I don't know, just didn't. It just didn't have it. I love the practical effects and the sets and the costumes, but it just like, I didn't overall have any like major nostalgia for it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, you guys didn't grow up in that time where it wasn't in your face all the time, so
Yeah.
I can see that.
I was nostalgic for the subtle kidnapping.
It's a lot of
Like, I think it was pretty like just like straight up kidnapped.
I'm like, what happened? Where
a huge
are
slave.
the parents?
Or the
No-
parents'
no one
subtle
cared.
neglect as well, where they're
Yeah.
like, just go to bed, it's fine. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of
That's
little
how it
subtle
was.
things.
This is back then. Like children just went to bed, right? Like that's just what happened. Like go to your room, go to bed. That's just how it
What?
was. We're watching TV. We're donezo. That was probably the best part of the film. Was that setup? Like the setup there was just like perfect. And I'll go more into that when we talk about Spirit. But like that was the best part of the movie.
Okay. All right. So in production value, let's start it off with Katherine. What do you have to say in the production value category?
overall, I really enjoyed it. Like I mentioned before, where there's the costumes were amazing, the sets were amazing. I mean, you're in different time periods throughout the film, so that was just impressive that they were able to convey that, and you can kind of figure out where you were in time without them exactly telling you. And just like there's tons of explosions, and there's even like the miniature of the castle of like the evil one where they like panned up. I
So
thought that
good.
it was so good. I
Yeah.
really liked that.
Yeah, that was peak for me when they pull out. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "That's a miniature right there." We don't
Yeah,
get that
immediately.
a lot these days. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I even had a specific note in there like, oh, that miniature is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cameron, you got some production things?
I love the production value for the time. I think they hit all the periods really well. I don't think they quite did so in the layer part of it, but no biggie. Practical effects. I mean, the arm wrestling scene.
Oh my god,
gets
yeah,
ripped
the
off.
arm wrestling scene.
That was bananas.
That made me crack up for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely over the top. Even like with the giant and in the ocean, and then like the house and stepping on them, and then them like putting the screen inside the house to show the people running around. Like it was what they had at the time. It's very goofy now, but it definitely added to that value.
I mean, in 1980 or 81, whenever they filmed this, things like that were just starting to become prevalent with I wrote down the face of him, or whatever they call it, the god, essentially God, the creator, was kind of a Disney. Katherine can speak to this, but like the Haunted Mansion, like the Force project. It's not that, but it looks a lot like the ghosts in the Haunted Mansion ride.
Yeah, it does for sure.
Like the camera angle.
Yeah.
Interesting to know about that giant guy, though. I didn't realize he was also in Game of Thrones as like one of the old maesters.
Yeah, I actually have that note in that he was a Targaryen maester that was on the wall. Yeah, he was the blind guy.
Yeah, the blind guy.
Okay.
That was all about Jon Snow and whatnot. I was like, that's the same guy. So yeah, he clearly was not working out as much on the wall as what he was when he was down by the shore. But that's the difference of beach bodies, I guess.
I didn't realize he was an ogre for the longest time until they directly called him an ogre, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
He got called out.
Yeah.
I actually don't think we're allowed to call them ogres these days. Kind of a derogatory term, so
Oh, it's not PC.
Got him.
Okay.
One who lives in the swamp.
yeah,
Swamp person. Come on.
largers.
So what's Game of Thrones? You mentioned that.
I also
What's what?
didn't realize that.
Excuse me. What'd you say?
Well, what's Game of Thrones? You mentioned that.
Oh my God! Get out of here.
Stop it with your Game of Thrones. Cut it out.
All right, Stephen. What's your production values for this movie? Anything of note?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed a lot of the visual gimmicks. I feel like you're going through time, the movie is moving through time. You felt like you've changed time periods. You definitely changed like the sets and stuff like that. I think the Titanic was great. I think I get my ancient. Were they in Rome or like with the
They were
Minotaurs?
in Greece.
Greece.
They were in
Greece.
Yeah, they were in Greece.
Yeah, ancient Greece. It was great. It really reminded me of the original like Cleopatra film with that great grandiose like scale and like just like the open sets. And they had to drill it down a little bit when they went into like the marketplace and then in the actual kingdom and stuff. So like really using a sense of scale, but also like being reasonable to budget and what's feasible back then. But man, they had to blow through some money to make these sets. Just absolutely cost with costumes and everything.
That's what you did in the 80, 75. Like, they had to build a set. Like, there was no or very little CGI unless you're going to do some matte painting. But, they had to move around these worlds and very specifically those time periods. So, yeah, they built those sets and I think this is something that Stephen, you always talked about, was worlds don't feel lived in, especially in the newer Star Wars stuff. That these worlds felt extremely lived in.
Yeah, it's like Napoleon and all like you could tell this is like a ransacked area, and he's just come in to just do whatever he wants. And then like you could tell the palace, you could tell the Titanic, you could tell. I didn't like so much the later sets, but that's going to go into a different conversation later. The the monster designs and stuff. I will say where I started losing a lot of interest was like the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger level villain looking design. Um,
That's a
Yeah.
good.
He was a little Rita
the
Repulsa.
evil land didn't feel. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like where they were implying like God was like the businessman and stuff, and the
Mm-hmm.
evil place was like technology and stuff. Like I like that in concept, but
Yeah.
it's not good enough when you're like comparing business to technology as like good and evil. That's kind of like I didn't get
But
that.
I almost saw
I've-
it as like the young boy, like, because it almost left it kind of open ended. Like, was it in his head or
Open-
did it actually happen? So even like the evil ones, where they were just wrapped in plastic, it reminded me of that parallel of his parents having their furniture wrapped in
furniture.
plastic. So it's like, is he reflecting that as the evil ones being his parents?
Well, that's where I liked it,
I
where they
think
were
so.
like kind of alluding to
Yeah.
the game show. Like if it what like
Yes.
like it would have been really funny. And I don't necessarily
Your
like,
money or your life.
I don't like
Yeah.
like rewriting as a point of argument. Like that's I do it a lot, unfortunately. But where I was hoping to see was more of that comparison to where like yes, the things that make me feel abandoned and unloved and like lost in my own home are evil. Let's see more of that, like the tube apocalyptic, like warlock aesthetic didn't do it for me to where if they kind of like business reverse it like it's a company like oh man I got to run this show like they're like we're running like we're going to try to do a corporate overtake of time and stuff like that that would have made more sense so it's like it gets a little bit of mixed messaging there when you're talking about like the good or God or all of that is like this businessman that was like really strict on the dwarves and they like can't live their life and then they go commit evil and then just like kind of like subjugate themselves at the end. It's just like, and I'll go more into that in spirit later. But I was just like,
It was it was a lot it looked like the precursor to the Matrix.
yeah,
Talking
Yeah.
about that guy and precursor to some other things. It was kind of like the original Bill and Ted, if you will.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
went to those different time zone or time periods
Eras.
as well as time zones across the galaxy. So
oh,
I don't know.
haven't
It-
seen that movie.
You haven't seen
Oh,
well,
we'll just have to
it's
add
on
that
our
one
list.
to the list. Bill and
I-
Ted's Excellent Adventure.
But also James Cameron saw that Titanic scene and was like, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, right.
It's like I've been thinking about this forever. I just needed someone to give me enough money to go and do it.
I feel like a more recent television show has taken a page out of Time Bandits would be Loki, because there's just the way that they have the time holes open like a little square and people like fall through. It's just like the TVA where it's like a corporate environment and how they like run time and time is created. It's like that parallel to it.
And they're there to fix the holes or like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's an interesting take. I didn't immediately draw that. Just because I was just so affronted by everything I would.
A lot of those writers
the-
watch Time Bandits.
One of the production value things that I saw that they didn't put production value in, but I absolutely loved, and I don't know how they would have done it differently, but every time they were falling, it was just a bunch of dummies. They were just a bunch of mannequins that they put clothes on and just threw down a hole.
That's
Got me
hilarious. How did I
laughing
miss that?
every single time. Yeah.
They should do that
'Cause they're just
on
very-
cinema like that.
Yeah.
That should be a gimmick that you can deploy today, and it would still be funny. So I think that's a little
Oh, yeah,
harmless.
absolutely.
It sold it for
I'm with
me
you.
every time they did it. Every time they fell from the sky, or the first one I saw was that when they fell down the first. They pushed the wall and then they fell down the first. They got to the edge and then they just pushed everybody fell down the blackened hole, just the abyss, and it's just they just threw a bunch of dummies off there, a bunch of mannequins off there. It was fantastic.
I need to go back and check that out. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. All the costume designing, Evil's costume it was great. Like that was such an awesome sculpt, and his shoulder pads, and yes, it was kind of Power Rangers and Rita Repulsa-esque.
If anything, I think David Warner used his Tron outfit.
I was just gonna say he was the big rat in Tron too.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because the whole time I was like, who is this guy? He's so familiar. I had to look it up. It's like, oh yeah, he's in Tron.
So I didn't go back and watch this yet when I watched this through, but in the kids' room before the dwarves showed up, all of the things they had a shot. There was noise happening, so we showed the floor where all the toys were. I think the robot started moving. But if you look closely, almost all there, not all of, I mean, there may have been more, but at least there was a French cavalry soldier, and then there was they were kind of foreshadowing what he was about to see. There was also a stage, like a little stage with little, design, like he was like when they got to the French cavalry. I don't know if there was other items with his toys, but I saw that and I was like, ooh, that's some good foreshadowing.
There was some
with those elements.
There was definitely great foreshadowing, but I also, with the little robot moving, reminded me of like Stranger Things 2, whenever they had all the little robots and creatures like going across the living room to scare Dustin when he came back from his camp. I was like, well done, Duffer Brothers, caught that.
Okay, so let's get some marks out here. Katherine, what's your score for production value?
I put it at an 8 because I just overall really enjoyed the production value. Those practical effects were great. I loved the miniatures. I really liked even like you mentioned, the foreshadowing. The costumes are amazing, and just being able to see what time period you're in without them actively telling you that. Another thing that I noticed whenever they were in like the evil one's lair, which I mentioned how like they were all dressed in plastic, kind of parallel to the parents. If you look at the background, all of the like stones that the castle is built on, they look like Legos.
I wrote that down. The Lego big
I
Lego
wrote that
bricks.
down. Yeah, they look big Lego bricks. So overall, I loved it. I loved which one of the dwarves, he had like a little calendar hat with a candle on it. I don't know. I just thought that was funny.
I can't remember all their names.
I can't remember all their names.
I don't.
Fidget was one of them.
Fidget,
but I don't remember.
Fidget. He died and was brought back to life to go back to work again. That sucks.
Let me go. Just I don't want to work anymore.
Like, so
please.
you coming in tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right, Cameron, what's your
you got a lot
production value score on this?
I went with a 7 on this one. The Minotaur was really bad. It really tanked the score for me. But everything else was great. I
do have a question. This was gonna be brought up later on, but as a kid, is that supposed to be a guy with a helmet on, or is it supposed to be a Minotaur? Because as a kid, I was always like, "That's a Minotaur," and then
I think it's supposed to be a Minotaur being in Greece, and it was making like weird kind of horse noises too,
I
like
didn't pick
squealing.
that up. I just thought he was wearing a dead animal head. I was like, that's vile.
So as an adult,
like
that's how I thought of it.
Yeah, like I don't really remember the story of the Minotaur, but I think he had to prove that he killed it or slayed it by removing its head and bringing it back. Another Sean Connery feat, just proving how he became the one. He is the original Highlander.
Oh, he's not the Highlander. He's the Spaniard, but yeah.
True, but. Well,
he was there before Duncan MacLeod was.
Okay, fair enough.
That's
fair
for sure.
enough.
Yeah. Okay, so you give it a 7, you said?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Steven, what say you?
I write it a 7. It's pretty
Okay.
cut and dry. I would like disagree with the Minotaur specifically. I think it's a great way, well, because when you're talking about legends or like lore, like yeah, probably if we're looking at it realistically, it was just some bandit crazy dude that was wearing a dead cow head and he brought it back. But when we're
Yeah.
retelling it within story, I was like, oh no, it's this fantastical beast, and it, like I'm Sean
Right.
Connery and I
Wow, that
yanked its head.
went over my head.
So like that kind of stuff I like and appreciate about this film. It does give it a sense of realism and lived in world, and it's a lot of show don't tell. You don't have to say like, oh, he was just a man behind a beast mask. It's like, oh, well, it could be interpreted a lot of ways. It's just how it was back then.
Yeah.
He's going to tell his own story. Um, that
True.
is good. That is good cinema that we don't get anymore because you got to have like main character look and like I knew that it was in fact not a beast but a man. Audience, like that kind of stuff. So like even we mentioned the arm wrestling at a different point about like practical effects and yanking the arm off, but they were telling more of a story because he had a barrel of arms that he was just like put another one
Yes, it was
in.
hilarious.
Oh, I missed the barrel.
Yeah.
Damn
Yeah,
it.
there was a whole wheelbarrow of arms, and you just tossed to the arm, and he's like, "Next."
Yeah. So you just
Oh,
get a
thanks.
whole, just that little scene. That's what he sit and does. So
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good. It's good. It's good production.
That's fantastic.
When you get
Okay.
got a whole story. I know that whole character's background from what 8 seconds of screen time. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah.
is visual
He's
storytelling
handy.
at its best. Yeah, he has a right to
I'm
arm.
gonna keep him around.
Uh,
He does.
But like the only points that I can really knock it off is when I guess they ran out of budget again because that's Monty Python, that crew. They can't budget out a film to save their lives, so they ruin their storytelling with what they do. And that's the only
Shots fired.
I know parts off. Well, because even like the practical effect or the digital effect, I think it was a digital effect with the time gates opening and stuff. That was very
Yeah.
Star Wars. It felt like a lightsaber, like the same kind of like stutter. Like I like that. So it's
Hmm.
even for the time, like I can't even knock too many points for like where they just don't have the tech to do stuff because technology doesn't necessarily save anything. Kenobi.
Right.
Um, so yeah, seven's where I over justified my score, but you know, it's like that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to land at an 8.5 for costumes, for set pieces, for making that world, for the miniatures. It would be a little higher, except, and this is Cam knows about this because we do a Friday night movie night with our group of friends, and we watch good movies, but then we watch a lot of movies that fall into the B movie category or real bad. And this movie does suffer from this. Is for some reason in the 80s, if you, I don't want to say if you weren't top tier movies or top of the heap movies, they all suffered from sound mixing issues where there's a lot of stuff going on, but they don't know how to balance it all out. And it sounds like a cacophony of noise. We watched Ice Pirates last Friday. And when things
Space
were going
Harpies.
on, when there was so many people, there's sword fighting, there's laser blasts, there's people falling and breaking boxes, there's monster noises. It's just like everything in the kitchen, everything and the kitchen sink in the pot, and it's just a hot mess of noise. This movie suffered from that in spots. When they go to France, especially when bombs are going off and things are happening, it's just they fall into where was it specifically? They were scrambling trying to get something. The evil's doing his thing, so we have music, we have scrambling dwarves, and the minions are talking. Everyone's
Race.
just, it's just so much happening, and it's like I don't know what to focus on. My brain is having trouble piecing these out, and I watch 1.5 million movies. That's why we're doing this, like trying to get Steven caught up to speed. And I see the great sound designs and sound mixing, and then it does happen here in spots, but other spots where everyone's talking, everyone's doing something, it's just so much and it's a hot mess. So I landed at 8.5. I probably would have given it a 9 if it wasn't for that. So there was something else and I can't remember what it was, and Katherine started to talk about it and then my brain forgot it, but I'll probably remember it as we go along. So, and let's move into the spirit and intent. Steven's got some spirit and intent, and we'll let's let him kick off this. See where we go.
What an appropriate
Steven?
for me to lead off on. I'm so excited. So, again, where I got really locked in on this movie was right at the beginning. It's like, oh, this is like a quintessential 80s like childhood. Like my parents are like horrible, and you can interpret that in several different ways. Like that's his perspective. Maybe his parents work like super hard, and they're just like, I just want to provide the best, and like. You don't know, you're going through his lens, you're watching this movie through his lens. So like, okay, that's a great setup. This is his kid, he doesn't really like appreciate what he has, or maybe he is truly in dire straits and is going to do escapism through fantasy and all of that stuff. Like great setup. And then there's absolutely no payoff for that throughout the entire film. There's a great joke. There's a great hee funny when he's like, oh, I got a new dad. I'm gonna live as a prince and it's gonna be great. And they're like, oh, look, kid, we got work to do, kid. We gotta be time bandits. We gotta steal the stuff, kid. We gotta go. And then he's like, oh, my son's gone. Like, great. That is a great like woohoo arc. And it doesn't pay off for any way. Like I don't know if they intentionally do this, if this is how the book is, because apparently this is a book. I did check that out.
I didn't know that.
I don't know how loose it is based on it, or if it's even relevant. But there is a book called Time Bandits or The Time Bandits.
Time Bandits. Okay.
And
doesn't it pay off in the end?
No.
With the like Sean Connery's the firefighter. Like
right,
it's kind of just like Wizard of Oddish.
No, it's
Wizard
the same thing as
Oz-ish.
Monty Python, where they're just like, I don't have any more budget. Oh, the film's done. Like they're like, oh, he's back now. Everything's fine. Oh, your house and your parents blow up. So like you should have appreciated them, I guess. Is what the lesson is, or the spirit of the film.
Oh yeah, like the ending I think really leads into why I don't remember this movie so much, because it was pretty much like, yeah, your house is burnt down, your parents are dead, have fun, see you next time on Foster Bandits. Like I they just ended it. I was like, what is this? Is it the imagination of this kid? Because that's what they foreshadowed, but at the same time they just kind of like panning away like Lethal Weapon or something, and like everyone's going about their business. Like don't worry about the kid or anything. I don't know. It was very strange.
And you like that boy just lost his house and his family. Like what?
You could wrap it.
Yeah, my note is
same way.
Everyone just leaves this kid alone, and he's now left to his own devices after his parents blew up.
I mean, like he's pretty much gone through all time. I don't know what you're gonna try to teach this kid. You're gonna try to teach him like about Greece? It was like, I was there. I was a prince.
For like 5 minutes.
And
they don't need to know that.
And they don't do anything with that. I could almost accept that ending, like, oh, he lost everything. He should have appreciated what he had, and like he's solemn, and he like picks up like the toys or something, and you're like, oh, he's just gonna return to like fantasizing, and like he solemnly walks off somewhere. Like you could wrap it up there and kind of give it some like full circle thing, but it just they're like that's is why would you make a film end that way for any reason? So, like what is the purpose of ending it that way? Just for like, aha, got the boot, like we got the hook, we're out of here. Like I don't get it. Maybe I have like sub
it's supposed to be
off the cliff
comedy. Yeah, like that's we're I guess if you were to make this a serious movie, because this is by no means serious.
Literally, like, what it sets up for the entire time is to be like a serious like never-ending story kind of like setup, where it's like we're really tackling like childhood tomes and we're going through history.
No, never-ending story is way heavier. So much heavier.
But this is like in
It
that
is.
same vein, of like it's like really tackling heavy things. Like this kid is going through it. Like it's not even a funny like
He's
going
talking to
through it.
God.
Right.
How many kids are talking to God?
People that are
Trying to get right with the Lord.
Like, just, I don't get it. I would love if anyone has a justification for like what's the point of this film? What is the spirit of this film? What is it trying to convey as a story? I would like to
trying
know
to
if
convey
the
the
book ends the
lulz.
same way. If I can get a fact.
I'm
check
trying to
on-
find the ending, what the book says right now.
Okay, so
Everyone's looking at me, looking over here. I'm like, I'm trying to read real quick and see if I can come up with the ending of the book.
I'll surrender my time back to the rest of the court.
I went with the 7.5 on Spirit. I felt like their spirit was greater than their production value, but not by a whole lot.
Okay.
You know, I did think they were just trying to make an adventure film around, you know, this tormented child and, you know, this existential crisis of good and evil, and technology, I guess, is the overtone in that story. So I guess they got their message across. I don't really felt like they burned through their budget, except maybe when they got to the lair. That was like the least impressive spot, but like maybe that was on purpose too. I don't know. But like I enjoyed the spirit of this film.
So based
That's my
on what
one
I'm reading
take.
here, I don't think the book ends like that. There's a bedroom filled with smoke. Firefighter breaks down the door, rescues him. But is that the movie? This is
Well, that was
that's
the movie.
the movie. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm. All right, Catherine, go while I find this.
Okay. Overall, it was like I enjoyed the adventure story aspect of it. Like the young boy was a dreamer. The parents very much reminded me of Matilda and how they ignored Matilda. They were more interested in their TV and their game shows, and just like kind of the kid was just there. I also really liked the cast. It was a big star-studded cast. We had Shelley Duvall, we had Ian Holm, John Cleese, Sean Connery. I was like, oh dang, we got some people in this movie. I was impressed with that. But like overall, like a majority of the story was just like there wasn't a lot of meat to it. It was just like they just ran from one time period to the next, stealing things because they felt they deserved something. So I was just like,
Only to return
wanted
back
a little
to
more.
where they started. Yeah, only return back to where they started.
yeah, only to return. And even then, when
With
they
pay
returned back, they had to take lesser than. They had to take
Yeah.
that pay cut.
True.
But then you learn that it was the Supreme Being just like running a test. So like he knew the dwarves were taking this map. He allowed it. It was everything played out exactly the way it was supposed to, according to the Supreme Being, who was just like an old white man. Like he's like
Yeah.
very Wizard of Oz-esque.
Corporate
Yeah,
subjugation. I'm understanding now. The boy is punished. The dwarves are punished from breaking away from corporate greed.
Yeah.
There
I
you
did
go.
love the humor.
There's your message.
Yeah. I loved the humor of the film with Shelley Duvall as Pansy, and just like how there were just like little quick scenes with her there and her man. That was
Underperforming.
Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Shelley Duvall had so much life in her eyes. Like I'm
did.
wondering where this lined up in her Shining filming, because like they
She
were
wasn't
done
broken
around the same
spiritually,
time. Like I don't know where this landed. Maybe they did this movie earlier and it took a long time in post to do all the crazy effects. And then she went on to doing The Shining, but like they were both released within a year from each other.
Oh wow.
But I feel
Apparently
like
she was
both
injured
films
on
took a
set,
while.
too. Yeah.
Really?
Well, they threw
Yeah,
a
I
bunch
was
of
looking
dummies
up.
on top of her head.
Yeah, they were like showing her how how all the dwarves are gonna like fall through the carriage, and they were testing it, and then they like fell and like hurt her neck really bad, and she had to like go into therapy and stuff to like get her neck fixed. I was like, oh dang.
It's too bad.
Oh, that was
yeah.
it. That's where. So we were talking about time periods where they were able to show us the time period without explicitly
Telling.
saying where it was.
Yeah.
Other than the carriage and the bandits, we don't really see where they are. And then the kid's like, we're in the Middle Ages. And you're like, how did you know that? You just randomly come out with it out of nowhere.
But
I mean,
then
they
we have Robin Hood.
foreshadowed
John
that
Cleese's
he-
Robin Hood was hilarious.
They show that he is a history nut. Like he
Yeah,
ran
yes.
at his parents. Like,
Yes.
oh, you know, they wore the clothes and blah, 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 and the kids.
I guess like it was, but it was very like they landed in the carriage, jumped out of the carriage, they got abducted by bandits and tied to the tree, and the kid was like, "We're in the Middle Ages," and you're like, "How did you actually know that?" I guess
Just a carriage.
It seemed a little
How
too
often were they doing carriages and with like how many
a long
periods?
time, I guess.
Costumes.
How many
Yeah.
periods did that be? Middle age,
He
loose,
was up on his Middle Ages Vogue.
right? It's not like they
Like,
dropped
I
on
know-
a Ford
I know-
Pinto
I know
and he
what
was like,
all
"Oh
these
my god,
outfits
it's
are."
1985!" Like,
I also love
Okay.
John Cleese's Robin Hood, how he was like literally stole from the dwarves and took credit for it. Like, oh, the poor people are gonna love this, and he's like, "Poor people, here's your treasure, here's your punch."
The punch,
Punch in the face.
punching the poor is so good, so good.
He's so over the top,
Yeah.
British. I
Oh,
loved
I
him
know.
as Robin Hood.
It was great. And then
That kinda-
Ian Holm as Napoleon was hilarious because he just like really it was like almost like a caricature of Napoleon, where he was just like really latched onto that. Everything had to be smaller than him in order to enjoy it. So that's why he's watching a puppet show.
Right?
About small things beating up other small things.
Yeah.
That was
Poor
that was a
puppeteer.
slight rewrite that I had if we were playing the Steven rewrite game, was how they got to that. Monty Python was a little bit before my time, and maybe I don't know, Cam, if you watched Monty Python at all as a kid.
My dad watched it, but yeah, it wasn't something I saw much on reruns. I had to go and find those things later on in life, and then
So
question why he left also. But they do have their moments.
Those they play the joke out, they play the scene out, and they play it long sometimes, and those long scenes kind of drag a little bit. And I think that one, like, the whole joke was that the scene took so long to get to the joke of I like watching small things hit each other, and then they're on stage hitting each other, and he's like, "You guys are my new generals." I think that had been
Exactly.
played differently, where they snuck in, got to the stage, or got grabbed up by the stage hand, was like, "You guys are a good act, get on stage," and then they're like, "That's Napoleon, he's got money," and then he comes back. Where we sat on Napoleon for a while, we had this whole stage performance of, and it wasn't a long scene, but it seemed long.
wasn't it like
In-
minutes? Am I
It
tripping?
did though.
It was long.
It dragged. We see Napoleon, we identify it's Napoleon, then we see the bandits, the dwarves, and they run off, and then we go back to Napoleon. Then we see the stage performance, back to Napoleon and his generals, and he's mad at them. And then we go back to the stage hand trying to like usher up new talent and new acts, and you're like, let's go, wrap this thing up, let's move
It was
on.
a huge,
So those
huge lead up to one like joke, essentially.
one
Yeah.
joke, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are those places where I know Monty Python can take those jokes and extend them a little longer than they need to be at times. And so that's where like some of this, I don't know if that would fall under production value or spirit, but kind of it took a couple points off for that. Just so it's like, and this lands with the older, an older movie, and if this movie was made today, and I'm sure Time Bandits, the TV show, does not stop. It's just like, go, 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 go. We're going to keep this train rolling, instead of just settling and letting the scene play out in its entirety, in its long form. And that's happened on a lot of older movies that we've watched in our Friday night movie night, where you're like, all right, let's go. Come on, pick
Well,
up the pace here.
It's that pacing in those older films are very different than now
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
shorter attention spans.
Well, I'll even say that it's just like horribly
Yeah.
misplaced because you can do that long, like drawn out joke, like do it at the Robin Hood scene. Like if we got like 2 extra minutes of just like slugging the poor, it's just like all the gold, that's funny. That's the slapstick humor. Or if you did it like he spent even more time with Sean Connery, and so when he was just ripped away, you're just like, oh my god, like
That became
that
Or
joke
a
really
little
serious
more
pay
with
off.
at that point
the
in time.
ogre and his wife. That was
Yeah, and it's like
yeah.
almost any other set would have been better utilized than the Napoleon one because I just felt like we're really dragging right out the gates. It's the first jump, and we're having
That,
issues
and I think
here.
that's where it hurt it, because it was dragging it right out the gate. You're like, okay, let's sit on this a moment here. We're gonna get you into this world, and you're like, we need to pick it up a little bit faster.
Yeah, because they're
all right,
probably
so let's-
world building for like the world. They're doing a time building for no. They're doing a character development of Napoleon rather than like building up like the mechanics of Time Bandits or anything like that. That's
or like
I wonder if
explaining
it's-
the giant with a ship hat. Like I really wanted a little more context.
All right, we're gonna get to
on
that. Yeah, we're gonna get to just derail. What I was saying, maybe it was because of it's Ian Holm. Ian Holm, that's who it was, right?
Yeah, Ian Holm. It was Ian Holm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bilbo himself.
Maybe because of, it's because of the actor. They're going to give him the screen time. No different than Sean Connery. Like, give him the screen time. Like, bill him in this movie. He's going to bring people into this movie, not the kid. Whoever, I don't even know if this kid did anything else in his acting career.
Poor
So,
Kevin.
but let's start to wrap this section up and moving on. So let's say, Catherine, Cam, you had a 7.5, if I do recall.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Catherine, what's your spirit for this?
I gave it a 6. Just
Okay.
because I felt like the story could have been a little better, a little more. It was just felt a little loose, but overall, like the
Okay.
humor, I love the cast. But yeah, 6.
Okay. Steven, what's your score for this?
2.
Oh,
2. All right. There's the combative part of this.
Too. Absolutely no reason to make this film other than like we got a budget. Like maybe it was a tax write-off. That would make more sense to me.
No. No, this is probably a Terry Gilliam, Michael Palin, they were like big cook in this. They're like, let's this book I read, and this is coming off the back of Monty Python. I'm assuming they were still in it at the time, or maybe this was coming off the end of them. I don't know when they quit making.
I'm
Monty Python.
actually flabbergasted that this is after Monty Python because I think you took nothing that you learned from that in making a humorous spectacle. Because if that's what this is supposed to do in intent, this is just infinitely worse than probably every other product that you've made before. So,
Wow.
They didn't use coconuts for the horses.
yeah.
I think they learned about horses and what they actually sound like.
exactly,
trotting.
they're just like,
Like-
money, light it on fire. Money, light it on fire. they funded this project.
Because, I mean, even the end of Holy Grail ended with like the police cars and they're getting arrested, and then it was like roll
yeah.
credits.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like their bit. Like maybe that's just their bit, and I don't
Yeah,
get it.
that's
Like,
it.
it's
Yeah.
funny, but like it
That's their
doesn't seem to be
signature.
what they were doing here. It's just yeah.
Okay. Trying to see if Life of Brian was 79, Holy Grail was 75. Okay, so they
Oh.
were. I think they
This
were
is-
already done with Monty Python at the time.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm gonna get comments being like, "No, they were still doing." No, I don't know. Again, this was before my time, clearly before all of our times. Monty
Yeah.
Python, The Flying Circus, 69 to 74. So yeah, they were
Okay.
well done with this, moving into Holy Grail, and Life of Brian. So we're already out of that, and into other feature films. I landed at a 7.2. Pretty much for all the reasons that we've discussed here, so I don't have to belabor that point anymore.
9.2.
But I don't know, 7.2 sounded good. A little extra sauce in there.
Trying to pad his score to make
But I did.
me. I see.
One watch review. You know the rules. Rookie score.
It was a comedy. At the end of the day, it was supposed to be funny from the beginning to end. It was supposed to be silly, and I was not coming out of this being like, this kid has learned a lesson. It was left us on the nonsense of your parents exploded, good luck. The firefighter that was potentially your new dad is off, and you are left alone. And they were out the door. Like, and that's how I took it. So, I thoroughly enjoyed it in that realm. All right, so moving on, let's go with rewatchability, and let's start with Katherine.
With me, I love the fantasy aspects of it. I'm a big fantasy nerd in general. Like I already said, like this film walked so other 80s films could run. It was like the beginning of that big craze for fantasy films. And I did love the humor, that Monty Python, almost Mel Brooks type humor in it. But that ending, like you said, it was a little dark and unexplained, and that really quite confused me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Do we give a score now?
No. Hold off on the score. Let's see,
Yeah.
Cam. What's your score, or what's your anything in rewatchability or
Rewatchability in this one, I could take it or leave it. I think what we were talking about earlier with the long drawn out jokes, like that did not lend well to me wanting to watch this as a child, and like being stuck in like French Revolutionary times was nothing like Transformers or G.I. Joe, so I cannot see myself trying to like watch through that. Even now, after seeing it, it does have its funny moments. Will I ever let it take the time away from me again? Probably not. I feel like I fully understand whatever the hell they were trying to say. I don't. Again, we were talking about spirit and intent. I think they hit that as being zany and a bit. But I'm not sure I want to rewatch that so much.
Okay, Steven, how do you? I could probably say how you feel. We could probably skip over you, but I'm not going to. Come on, Steven, let's rewatch it right now. Let's go.
If this film ever assaults my eyes again, I will be pressing charges against everyone who is screening it, producing it, or like circulating it, because this is just like.
We're gonna clockwork orange you, man. We're gonna like peel your eyes open and
it would be equivalent to that. That is what it would take to get like if the pixels ever disgrace the screen within my house again. Film. Oh my god, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy the film. I will not be rewatching it.
I'm back. What happened?
Okay, you're back.
Sorry. I don't know what just happened here. I plugged my phone in and then it went crap.
Nick Ray.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun. Nick.
All right.
And
So I'll
just end
start
the
off
episode there. Well, that's production quality, baby.
We're done.
Leave it completely unfinished. The episode's done. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check out Nick. And
okay, so my rewatchability kind of falls in, I guess, in everyone's. I would rewatch it again. Am I running out to rewatch it? No. If a Friday night movie night situation happens, I'm like, yeah, sure, throw it on. Like, we can talk through it and laugh at the silliness that it is. I'm not really gonna. Again, I'm not gonna run to it as my, something that's gonna take up any time that I have. But I would rewatch it again in a group setting with everyone around, so we can all chat and make fun of it or laugh along with it, and in that kind of setting. So I'm gonna put it at a 5.5 just to kind of say I would rewatch it again in that setting, but I'm not gonna seek it out myself. And I think that covers it. So I do enjoy it, but not a hey, let's watch a movie tonight. You want to watch Time Bandits again? No, they're not doing that. So, Cameron, what's your score?
5.
Okay.
Yeah, I take it or leave it, like a punch in the face.
Okay.
Yeah. Get your treasure. Punch.
Catherine, what's your score?
I gave it a 4. Like you said,
Okay.
if it was on, I'd probably watch bits and pieces of it, but I'm not like gonna running out to get a copy of it. It scratches my, like, confuses me. It makes me want to scratch my head that it is a Criterion.
A
Yeah,
lot
I'll
of
just leave
Terry.
it at that.
Well, Brazil, and Time Bandits are on the Criterion Collection. Brazil's another one that has, I think, a more coherent story from beginning to end, which would be fun to have Steven watch another Terry Gilliam classic. But that's for another day, another time. We need to let this one wash off him first.
Yeah.
He needs to
all right.
cleanse himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Steven, I'm going to guess yours is a big fat 0.
Absolutely,
For
it's 0.
rewatchability.
I would absolutely campaign people that if you have watched it, go get some kind of like lobotomy to remove it from your memory. You will live a better life in not having this film in your, like, any part of your brain. If your eyes start seeing it, like, get those little eye wash stations and just, like, blast it out, because, like, it's just a toxin that's going to poison the rest of your psyche for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like that the trailer of this movie pretty much set it up, because it told you everything and nothing.
I thought the movie was going to be
Those are
good.
80s
That's the
trailers.
best trailer I've ever seen. That's such a deceptive thing. I was like, oh man, it's like the Monty Python boys. This is going to be funny. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And it was garbage.
Let-
Golly.
Absolute letdown for you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Well, sorry,
It's a very
Steven.
Steven answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want sympathy
All right.
cards for suffering through this.
We'll get you a present, okay? Will that make up for it?
Yeah, I want flowers.
We'll go get you.
I had before.
What you want to go to? I was gonna say you want to go to Toys R Us, but there is no Toys R Us anymore. Go get a toy.
We'll take you to Target, buddy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Gotta see if today's the day that they got new stock in or not.
They got new stock, yeah.
We'll get you a Happy
stock
Meal.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Happy Meal I would
Sa-
take.
Same stuff as last week, buddy. Sorry.
Oh man.
Still
Okay,
lots
so
for you.
we're moving into overall thoughts. Cam, do you want to start off with any overall thoughts of this movie, or any things that you may have forgot to mention?
What can I say about this movie that hasn't been said already? Their spirit, their production value, their incoherent stories, their long drawn out jokes, the lack of anything in the layer. I'm still not going to let that go. And that crazy Minotaur horse head thing that was going on there. I don't really have much love for this movie. It wasn't something that I was like, I can't wait to watch again. I think if anything was robbed, it was our time, not the loot from across the time. We'll never get that back, regardless if the supreme being or creator, puts everything back. But yeah, that's my overall.
Okay.
Probably agree with Steven on this.
Yeah, well, Steven, let's hear your take on any overall thoughts that you'd like to express.
I've expressed a lot of things. I think I've put more effort into thinking about how this film should be executed and than was when it was executed. So, kudos to me. I appreciate myself.
Of course, Steven always coming in to fix stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
I know I could
Give me
make that film.
solutions.
Jeez Louise. Solutions was to refund everybody and to suffer through watching this. I give it like appreciation, because it does seem to have like created some groundwork for a lot of homage work later. Like it's very 80s fantasy adventure in its style. It does drip production value within set dressings, costuming, creatures, that kind of thing. I just wish it was on a movie that anyone could enjoy or like, and not everyone, just like a single person that could enjoy or like this film, this would have been a better investment for.
Yeah.
Okay. Catherine, do you have any odds and ends you'd like to wrap up here?
Yeah. Overall, I feel like this film is like, it's a product of its time. It really did use a lot of different elements in filmmaking with the practical effects and the great costumes. But like overall, like the script and the story wasn't super strong to me. It just, in general, just wasn't my favorite film.
Okay. I definitely agree with you that it is a product of its time, and given it, even 90s, early 2000s would have been a much different film overall.
Oh yeah.
There were a couple things that I wanted to note, and the gag of the bad guy's henchman asking him a question, then blowing him up, and then answering the question. Perfect.
That was good.
That was
perfect.
good. Perfect humor. And so this is the thing I wanted to bring up earlier. The boat guy, the giant. Since we're in the time of legends, this is supposed to be, now they're in the fantasy, like we're now out of no, hold on, I see you.
Mythology.
We're out of
Hold on, Steven.
but we're out of Rome, we're out of we're out of
Greece.
France, we're out of Greece, sorry, we're out of our known history. We're in the time of legends. This is the writings on the wall, the cave paintings, those things where they're fantastical now. So that we obviously don't have giants. It's not a thing that that ever lived on this planet. The question I had though was the giant. Did the giant just come up under the boat and he just was like, I have a boat hat on now? Or was he always attached to the boat?
Well, he had it like strapped around. I don't know.
No, it was a tattoo. It's a tattoo that looked like a strap.
Oh.
Yeah, he had whatever tattoos of wherever they were supposed to be. But so I was like, this was always something that I couldn't figure out as a kid, was did this giant just come out of the water and he was like, oh, here's this random boat on my head? Or was this he's just underwater walking and he was attached to the boat forever? But clearly
I think he was attached to the boat. Because I feel like those were witches or something of that matter, that when they got to the boat, they were trying to do some kind of spells or whatnot.
Well, the ogre and his wife, is that what we're talking?
Yeah.
Whoever was running the boat when they got there, I felt like there was some, like, I don't know if that was just gruel they were making or if it was like magic related, but I feel like as soon as they got booted, that's when they left.
She was grinding up feet and body parts.
Oh, right.
If you look, and that was Mona from Who's the Boss.
Oh yeah, that was Katherine. I forget her last name.
I don't know her name off the top of my head. But yeah, so she was. If you looked above her head, like the ogre called for her at one point, or was making noise. I think when they threw him off the boat after they stretched him and then heave-hoed him off the boat. They cut to a shot of her and she's got her meat grinder grinding what looks to be maybe a fist or a foot, but she has feet hanging from hooks above her. So she's just grinding up bodies and feeding them to him. Katherine Helmond.
Helmond, there you go.
Yes.
I thought the giant was aware that he had a boat on his head because he conveniently took it off and oh so gently set it on the ground so nobody inside the boat died.
Yeah. Okay, that's where I was landing as well. Like he seemed to be this was part of him, and then he came out of the water and took it off.
Which brings me to my favorite line of the entire movie, and I think it really sums up how this movie got made. Drugs. I have an idea. That's what that kid said. That kid was the one that was talking about using drugs to make the giant go to sleep.
Yeah, they just like put it in the billows and just like injected it into his head.
Was this an
That
allegory
is-
for not doing drugs?
I don't know,
You
but that
actually put more
kid
thought
knew his
into it
way
than anyone
around
else.
some drugs.
He sure
Just
did.
saying. He knew exactly what was going on.
All right, let's get some scores on this so we can wrap this this train up here. Katherine, what is your overall score?
The overall score I gave was a 4. Just
Okay.
Short, simple 4.
Okay, Cameron, what's your overall score for this?
6.
Okay.
I know that's a rookie move. I wanted to give it more, but I just couldn't. I really can't go beyond that for this movie, and that's being generous.
All right. Steven,
Steven.
0.
3. I gave it a 3.
Okay.
Because it exists.
Well, it's generous.
It is a film
thing
that,
that happens.
was made. There's talented people that I'm sure were possibly involved, just not in the writing or any of the other parts besides making it happen. So, yeah, it's a 3 overall. That's just for it's a product of time, but also it does have merits as loose as they could be considered. Like if there's like a behind the scene book of like the costuming or like how they made this stuff, that'd be more interesting than the film. So a 3.
Okay. All right, I gave it a 7.2 again. Another weird score, but 7.2.
That's
I
weird.
still enjoyed this
Why?
movie.
You saw it more than I did.
Just not more than Cameron did.
Yeah, you saw more clips that you could put together what didn't happen in this movie, and you enjoyed that more than
Yeah,
I did.
I just it played in that. I guess I have seen it enough that I knew that what the end outcome of the movie was and the silliness that came from it, and I enjoyed the ridiculousness of it all. So I kind of, that's where I'm landing with my score for overall. So that being said, I'm assuming everyone tallied up their own scores, because I wasn't writing them down. I'm just doodling notes for myself on my pad of paper here.
We mathed it. I did.
I mathed it. All right. So Katherine, based on your numbers, what is your final percentage for this movie?
Final percentage, I gave it was a 25 out of 50, so a solid 50% for me.
Okay. Excellent. Cam, what is your final
65% is what that comes
Okay.
out to.
Solid.
Steven.
Steven?
28%.
Nice.
I think it garnished at least 14 points off to total.
Okay.
At least. Okay.
All right, and mine is a 74%, which does also land in the.
You broke Steven a little bit on that
Oh
one.
my god.
I feel like 28% is how that kid would rate his kidnapping. He was like, it
didn't
could
have a
have been
break
better.
time.
There were no snacks.
I was the kid.
Well,
That's why. That was actually my theatrical career going down the bucket.
Yeah, the kid was very calm about his kidnapping. He's like, "Oh, my wall is moving. It's never done that before."
I mean, moments before, a horse was jousting through the bedroom and no one said
That's
a
true.
peep. They were like, keep it down. Trying
The
to
giant
watch
floating head of the supreme being. Yeah.
your money or your life. That was great. The game show is the best bit.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was a good one, and it was just a vat of pudding. Like they do cut back and we kind of just see it in the background, and the old man's just kicking his legs in the vat of custard or whatever it was.
Yes.
But all right, Steven, you want to round us out with some final plugs?
Thank you so much
Being
for watching this show. This is a better use of your time than any second of Time Bandits. We have a whole gaggle of people here. We have our own crew of bandits here stealing your time. Make sure you check out everybody's channels. I can't do individual shout outs, but there's links to it. You got to check them out. You got to subscribe.
I'll probably
You got to do the
put them on the screen.
Wow, they're everywhere. Look at that. Check us out. Make sure you give a great round of applause to Nick Firehazard 508 Creations, making playthings into display things. We appreciate him for hosting this fantastic show, where you don't lose your life. You just get more of it back, because you can go out and not watch these films, because you don't have to, because it's not a good use of your time. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Peace.